Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special edition of Chalk Talk on Inside the Birds. I'm Geoff Mosher alongside Adam Caplan, and we're so excited about the guest we have right now. He has worn many hats in the NFL. In fact, he's wearing a hat right now. It's just not an NFL one. He is a former scout, pro scout with the Philadelphia Eagles. He's been with two other NFL teams, and right now he's the founder and the director of scouting development for the Scouting Academy, which we'll talk about too. We're really happy to have with us Dan Hatman. We really appreciate the time that you have today to entertain us and educate us really on the scouting process.
Oh, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. So we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to talk about the job that you had. So Dan, for your context, right, this show Chalk Talk, Adam and I have been very fortunate to have what we try to do is educate people on a certain element of the game behind the scenes. So we've had head coaches, we've had GMs, we've had personnel directors, we've had offensive coordinators, defensive head trainers. We've had literally almost every kind outside of equipment manager. We may have had every single type of NFL employee, but you are our first kind of pro scout who did advanced scouting. And while we're in the middle of the season right now, we thought it would be a great idea to sort of give us what the life is like of someone who doesn't actually get to watch his own football team each week that he works for because he's out scouting other teams. So just start off talking to us about the job that you had with the Eagles as a pro scout from 2011 to 2013.
So pro scouting, I mean, you got to take anybody that's no longer college eligible, and that becomes our job. So this is people that are playing in other leagues. This could be the CFL, any of the spring leagues. We've had 700 of them here in the last decade, but any of the spring leagues that are up and running. So those kind of things we're always monitoring. We have to monitor every player that's coming in and out of the NFL. So every active roster, every practice squad. We got to maintain relationships and understanding of the players that are available on the street from free agency. We're prepping for actual free agency in the springtime. And as you bring up, we're advancing opponents. So for a 4-person department in most clubs, it's an awful lot of things that you're trying to keep track of for 4 people.
Dan, how did you like pro scouting? How does one get into that comparatively to college scouting? What drew you in, or is that kind of when you worked for the Eagles? That's where they put you. How'd you get into the pro scouting end of it?
You know, it's interesting because most people coming in don't get to choose. It's kind of like what opens up ahead of you. So I got into pro scouting with the Giants, actually, because that's kind of where they take their intern program. So you come in, you do their intern program, and you funnel for the first couple of years through the pro scouting side, and then you can go off into college scouting, should that be your interest or what have you. And a lot of times in the league, once you get labeled with something, you get kind of siloed. So because that was my first opportunity, then I got labeled a pro scout. So then when I was with the Jets, they were like, oh, well, you have a pro scouting background. Let's put you back in pro scouting. So I did it with them. And then when the lockout happened and I was able to get with Howie and talk about an opportunity, he's like, well, I could put you back in pro scouting. Okay, well, I've got some experience with that. So here we go. So, that ended up being what I did with all 3 places.
Let's discuss the role of an advanced scout and how that differs from maybe any other pro scouting role, as far as you're on the road most weeks of the season, correct?
So you can imagine your team plays Sunday most weeks, and we all talk about, that day after Monday, they meet with the players, they're going to break down the film or whatever. And then we talk about, they're going to get into the next week of game planning. And that's kind of where the fan base gets left, right? We know the coaches are preparing for the week. We can see, injury reports or whatever, but not a whole lot gets discussed. That week of prep really kicks off Monday night with a meeting between the coaching staff and the pro scouting department. It may be just 1 or 2 members of the department. It kind of depends on team. Most of the time, you're going to do an offensive meeting and a defensive meeting at different times. One may be before dinner, one may be after, whatever. But Monday night, you are delivering a report on your next opponent. All right. So if you just got done playing Denver, right, and next week you've got Dallas or Washington or whatever that next opponent is, we've been spending the last 7, maybe even 10 days on that next opponent. And so Monday night, we come into the coaching staff and outline, here's their current roster. All right, here's the next guys up on the practice squad. We go through that kind of thing, their strengths, their weaknesses. We talk about what we're seeing from the team, tendencies we may have found, key plays, situations, things for them to focus on. You're going through offense, defense, special teams, the whole 9 yards. And you're really just trying to give that coaching staff a leg up.
Do you go back? Do you ever take college stuff like that you notice? Let's say it's a rookie, right? Like you're with a team and you got to do pro advance, and the guy started a couple games, but his biggest tape is from college. Do you actually get any college information?
Yeah, I mean, we have access to the reports, so we can look at what the scouts might have said about them coming out.
Yeah.
We can certainly go back and watch that, especially when you look at these guys that maybe, we know their starter is dinged up. We're getting that questionable tag, right? They're playing the 50-50 game. And we look at the next person on the practice squad that's going to be the call-up player to fill in for that position. And they've got 12 snaps in the preseason doing very vanilla, generic things. And you're like, I don't really have a way to tell my team with any conviction what to expect. We got to go find something. So, yeah, let's pop on the college film. Let's see if there's any, valuable opponents from a single player entity standpoint to say, hey, we watched them play against this player or what have you. And that maybe is reminiscent of a guy we have on our roster. So if we're going to go prep for a DB for another team, and we can say, hey, AJ Brown's kind of a 1-on-1 body type. We saw this guy play against a bigger body type in college. Let's go pop that on and take a look and give some kind of a signal as to things that maybe they did well against that body type or poorly or what have you. Again, just trying to give them any little, and they're usually little things, right? It's usually not massive broad stroke things. It's little nuanced things about, hey, this DB has a really hard time dealing with the back shoulder throw.
So what at the stadium are you mostly doing with your notes and your binocular? What are you looking at? What are you looking for? And then what do you do after? Like, when is your report due? How do you write your report based on what you saw?
So, again, we've done a week's worth of work leading up to that particular game. So, again, if I'm advancing Dallas, I've spent the last week watching their roster, right? I've watched the players. I've written reports on them. I've watched their last 3, 4, 5 games or what have you, paid attention to that, especially if there is an opponent that does something similar to what we do, either offensively or defensively. So if you're, with all of the Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay offensive guys out there, like if we were running one of those offenses, I want to watch Dallas play against LaFleur. I want to watch him play against Mike McDaniel. I want to watch him play against those things because there's going to be parallels to what we're going to get. So we've done all that work. So that game day is confirmation. Right. That game day is about getting other operational details. Simple things like how fast do they break the huddle? When does the play call come in? Right. How do they sub personnel? Who would need to pay attention to? Because one of the things you're going to do for your own team when it's actually time to play Dallas is either it could be somebody from the pro department or it could be a coach, but somebody is in the communication with the coordinator on game day saying, hey, they're bringing out their nickel personnel. They're bringing out this, sub package that we see where they bring an extra safety in, but it's typically a guy that does a lot of blitzing. He's a special teamer or whatever. And you flag those kind of things. Well, somebody, again, has to be signaling that, telling the defensive coordinator, hey, they're coming out in that 2-back personnel we saw this week, but they're both running backs. And this is the stuff that they do with that, and we'll have a name for that. Hey, this is the pony package this week or whatever the case may be. And you're passing that information along. And so that's the stuff we're getting on game day.
What is it like to how do you separate yourself in the industry? How do you get your feedback, your performance reviews? And then how do you deal with not actually being able to watch the team that you work for play because you're usually at the same time watching somebody else?
So fortunately with some of the clubs I was with, we would be on a rotation. All right. So that's how it was with the Jets. And then some of the time in Philly, Riddick was a bit of a masochist, so there was a point in time where he did all of them weekly, which is
Louis Riddick.
Yeah, so that was a crazy time. Too many Red Bulls and 5-hour energies. I don't know how the man's alive, but that's not typical. When we were the Jets, Scott Cohen and Brendan Prophet would trade off weeks, and so the week that you were not on, you got to watch your own team, right? And you'd certainly watch your own team on tape afterwards, but there were those situations where you'd be missing those kind of things, which was kind of strange to play catch up on your own team, but it was critical, right? You're always evaluating against your own club. Like the self-scout is the most critical thing you're going to do as a team builder, because I have to be able to establish if this other player is better or worse than what I've got. That could be for my own roster build. That could be for the opponent's side, whatever the case may be. Like your own self-evaluation is paramount. And when you screw that up, everything starts to fall apart. Like you can't mess up the eval of your own club. But those kind of things were definitely wrinkles in there. I think the part of it that got hard in the space on the whole is that pro scouting originated with coaches, right? If you were going to do this kind of stuff, like Bill Belichick's dad, Steve, has a book, a scouting manual, but it's advanced scouting. Like if you want to go read about some of the real core principles of this, there's a book published when he was at Navy in the 70s about how to do this task. I mean, we've been gathering data and looking for tips and tendencies for decades. So, but it was coaches that were doing this. And so a lot of the people that worked on the pro side had either a heavy coaching or playing background. And so that ability to speak a coach's language made sense, right? There was that symbiotic relationship because you were already kind of tuned into that language. As the scouting profession has gotten younger and we've hired more people out of like the college recruiting space who maybe don't have a playing or a coaching background, it started to water down that language, right? Now all of a sudden there's a gap, right? The people that are speaking about pro scouting are not speaking in a coaching language, and it can create, I wouldn't say like mistrust, but it's hard to be taken seriously by the coaching staff when you're not speaking their language, when you're not putting it into context and terms and things that actually move the needle for them on a week-to-week basis. And so I think the importance of it has come down because we didn't have the right people doing it.
Hey, Philly fans, game day is stressful enough. Parking, traffic, long lines. We've all been there. But when it comes to your cannabis, Camden Apothecary makes it easy. This is the dispensary for sports fans, just minutes outside of Philly with plenty of free parking. You'll be in and out fast, no hassle, no waiting, and they don't just care about convenience. Camden Apothecary is all about the guest experience. Their staff makes sure you feel taken care of every time you walk in. Plus, they carry only the best quality cannabis at the fairest prices. So whether you're stocking up for the tailgate, the watch party, or celebrating a big win, you know you're getting the good stuff without overpaying. They even show love to the community with specials for fans, students, service members, and healthcare pros. Camden Apothecary, top quality cannabis, great prices, and an experience made for Philly fans 21 and up.
Dan, how did you learn how to be a pro scout? Who are your mentors in it?
I mean, I would say that my first boss was Dave Gettleman. That's how I got brought into the space and pro scouting.
A legend. Yeah.
I would say
with who? With what team? Was he with the Giants? It was with the Giants.
Yeah. Okay. So I would say that the way that department and Coughlin's coaching staff, there was a value, but not a tremendous value. I think when I saw what Scott and Brendan were giving to Rex and that staff, that really kind of opened the doors. They were really getting, again, the things on breaking the huddle and time to snap and when the play calls and all these little wrinkles. And then when I got to Philly, again, the things that Juan and that staff wanted from us, like this manual of things that we had to fill out, all these details and nuance.
Wow.
What happens in this scenario? What happens in this scenario? I mean, the things that we had to provide to that staff were, again, I still show them every year. I do a scout school with the Senior Bowl, and we'll bring in another pro director or what have you, and I'll put it in front of Jeff King or I'll put it in front of these other guys, and they're like, "Holy crap, we don't do anything like that." we did, we did at that time. We put a lot of information in front of them, so that was a huge learning curve for me now.
And just for those who might be struggling with the timeline, Gettleman brought you to the Giants, not when Gettleman was GM. This is when he was
Jerry was the GM. My first summer, Ernie Accorsi was the GM. I went to his retirement party.
Wow,
so
amazing.
That was my first foray.
What did you learn from your years with Andy Reid? I know because your overlap with Chip was just a few months, right? Yeah. And then you were on to the next one. So
I think all these folks have these fascinating strengths and weaknesses to their abilities. I think the biggest thing from Andy was that little extra diligence. Again, that finding something that the players were going to deem actionable. Again, you go to a player and you tell him, "Hey, we're playing DK Metcalf this week, right? Expect him to be big, expect them to run deep. Like, I mean, like the players going, yeah, of course.
I knew that.
It doesn't take me that long to get that. Madden could teach me that. Like, no big deal. Again, when you can come to the player and you can say, hey, when they're in the slot formation with the inside foot up and they get a head up to an inside shade from the corner, this is the release. They tend to use the diamond, they take the outside step. They're going to try to bring you there before they cross your face. Or like when you can bring them those kind of things and then they can see that actually manifest and you can build that trust, it's an entirely different game. I think that's what separates those really unique coaches in our profession, is that they can help the players anticipate because they know what the player is going to see. And when you can go to the player and say, you're going to see these things, when you get into this situation, this is what you can expect. And then the player goes out there and that situation occurs and that thing actually manifests, the trust level between the player and the coach, it changes. Like,
I would like to ask you, I think a lot of people would like to understand the role of that you would have when the season's over.
Yes.
So you're not going to games, you're not filing reports of the opponent in 2 weeks, you're not handing all that information down. What's next for the advance or the pro scout in an NFL front office?
So with Philly, and this was a little different than the Giants siloed pro in college. But in Philly, I mean, the next thing was free agency, right? So when these guys are going to a Senior Bowl these days, or certainly by the time you go to the combine, you got to talk contracts, right? You're talking to the people that you have interest in. So we had to have all of those kind of things. We had our own draft board, right? Our free agency board was up and present and discussed. So as we're doing advances and we're watching all these players in the league, obviously the players that are impending free agents, that's part of how we're building that board, right? We're grading all those players. We're talking about their strengths and weaknesses. You then have to cover all those teams you didn't play, right? You wanted to finish the season having a report on everybody that was in the league that year, which some years with injuries, that could be a rather long list. But you'd have all the free agents graded. And so as we came out of any sort of, if we missed the playoffs or whenever we came off of the field, so to speak, that was the full situation. We got to prep these guys for free agency. Again, here's the market. Here's what it looks like. Here's premium players. Here's the undervalued but might fit our scheme, whatever the case may be. Once you've hit the combine, and again, you've already kind of prepped for those things. You're not waiting for March. Like that heavy lift has been done. So then we get pulled in on the college side for cross-check. So what happens then is that, again, you've got all these area scouts and people you got all over the country watching players. Well, that means that any one of those individual scouts is not watching all of the players at that position across the country. So our West Coast scout, he knew all the players in the West Coast. That was his job. But he might not have context on what the tackles look like in the Southeast or what the wide receivers look like in the Midwest or what have you. So my cross-check was running backs. So I'd get brought in at that time and I'd be given a list of all the running backs that were deemed draftable or priority free agents. And it was like, hey, Dan, here's 25 names. Go write them all up.
Hey, I still like a good night out, but I'm not always in the mood to drink. And that's why I looked for a great alternative and I found one. It's called Soul's Out of Office Gummies. You get the same light, happy buzz, but you don't have the hangover. There's no sugar, and you don't get that awkward feeling the next morning. They help me unwind and ease into my evening without the alcohol or the next day fog. Soul is a wellness brand that believes feeling good should be fun and easy. Soul specializes in delicious hemp-derived THC and CBD products designed to boost your mood and help you unwind. Their best-selling out-of-office gummies were designed to provide a mild, relaxing buzz, boost your mood, and enhance your creativity and relaxation. With 5 different strengths, you can tailor the dose to fit your vibe. From a gentle 1.5 milligram microdose to their newest 15 milligram gummy for a more elevated experience. They've also got a variety of products specifically designed to help you get a better night's rest, including Soul's top selling sleep gummy, a fan favorite for deep restorative sleep. So bring on the good vibes and treat yourself to Soul today. Right now, Soul is offering our audience 30% off your entire order. So go to getsoul.com and use the code BIRDS, B-I-R-D-S. That's getsoul.com, promo code BIRDS for 30% off. What went into for you once you were out of the NFL, putting together the Scouting Academy? What was the brain idea behind it, and how did you get everybody involved? And for people who don't know, there are so many great former coaches involved, and maybe even some current ones. Obviously, Lou Riddick is involved. Jerry Angelo, former NFL GM, has been involved. Mike Martz. I mean, there's just a list of people. Bobby April, as Dan mentioned before. I mean, you probably could fill in some other blanks for me there, Dan. Right? Who else is involved that they
Mike
give
Sullivan
tutorials to your students?
Currently, Peter Giunta is coaching currently. Guys like Charlie Pointer that have been around the league for a long time. Mike Martz. We had a lot of different people involved, and it was part of wanting to bring some of that coaching language to this, right? We can talk personnel, and we've got people that can talk personnel, but being able to see what does that mean for the person who's going to put them on the field was a key piece of it. The idea actually started as an apprenticeship program I pitched in Philly. So again, having been one of my third team at that point, I'd been with 2 college programs prior to that. Like, people that got brought in, you got kind of thrown in the deep end. Like, here you are, do the work, sink or swim. And there was this chicken and egg thing, right? So teams wanted people that knew what to do, but the only place to learn what to do was with the team. So how the heck does that work? Right? We'd go out there hiring and be looking for people that were ready-made scouts, except there was no place to be a ready-made scout. And so the idea of the apprenticeship was we'd bring in 4 new people a year. So we'd have 8 total in the program, 2-year deals. And it was kind of like a junior rotational thing. Like, they'd spend some time in personnel, they'd spend some time with coaching, and so I walked them through that. You know, they'd have an arena league team they were responsible for, and a Canadian team they were responsible for, and like, they do all these different things. And by the time you're done with 2 years of a person exposed to all that, number one, you'd figure out, like, do you want them at all? Number two, you'd have the understanding of where would you put them, right? And then they would have an understanding of how to do all that and truly make it 2 years of redundant learning work. Like, not like the only person in the building who's doing that, a person who is apprenticing. They are learning this craft, but they're not the sole person doing it. That's not really the mechanism. Most people brought in, even as interns, are doing the task from day one, and they are the only person doing that particular task from day one. So, you know, I wanted these 8 people. I needed them to have office space and desks and computers. And I write up this whole proposal, healthcare, you know, the whole 9 yards. Well, the proposal's like $375,000. And, you know, that's not usually something that people sign off on. You know? So anyway, when, you know, I wasn't able to get that operational, and I found myself in this space in between. I actually started a company on building a technology for valuing players, and we were trying to move that in the marketplace. And while that was actually being built, I put up a post on Work in Sports, and I was like, hey, like, if you guys want to do scouting, like, I'd be here. I'd be happy to help you. And 100 people reached out the first week. They're like, hey, I want to be a scout. I had no idea. I was blown away by the number of people that were interested in the profession. And so I dusted out that old apprenticeship program and started building this structure. And I took 15 of them. In fact, I took Juan Castillo's kid, Greg, as one of those first 15 in the beta program. And it was like, hey, how do I teach this thing remote that had always been taught 2 people in a room? Right. So I spent 9 months with these people. I didn't charge them anything. I was like, you're going to teach me as much as I teach you, right? You're going to help me figure out how the heck do I do this virtually? This is before online ed was really a thing.
Zoom.
Yeah,
exactly. So I figured out how to teach this thing. And once I had the model, that's when I went to Jerry and Mike and Lou and all these guys. And I presented them the model, and they're like, yeah, I'd love to be a part of that. And we put it together, and we're in year 12 now of that.
And that's what you're doing. The Scouting Academy. The mission statement is right there on the webpage. Learn how to scout football like a pro. It's scoutingacademy.com. I believe you work on a semester basis, right? You have 2 different semesters per year. So anybody who's interested can go to scoutingacademy.com, and there's a button to sign up. And folks, if you didn't realize this, Dan's placed so many people in NFL teams. And it's not just geeks like me who've never played football, right? I mean, you've had like former football players, I think, go through your program and look for it. Do you have some people with the Eagles?
I was going to say Ben Angelana, former NFL player, Eagles scout, is one of our alums.
Right. Villanova, right? Didn't he play at Villanova?
Yep.
Ben Angelana, exactly. And so there's a lot of people from the Scouting Academy now working in NFL front offices. So if you're interested, scoutingacademy.com. And again, a lot of great people to coach you and get you to understand how to watch tape, what to look for, how to write a scouting report. You learn everything when you go through the Scouting Academy. Take it from me. I'm much more well-versed in tape study and understanding the game because of it. Dan, we can't thank you enough. It's been great catching up.
Great.
Really appreciate it. I know our listeners are going to be smarter for having heard this. So thank you. And again, during free agency or draft period, we're going to have you come on and do an Ask an Eagle with us, so all of our great listeners can ask you questions on what you look for and have a personal interaction with you.
That sounds great.